All right, let's get right into a story that completely blurs the lines between history, faith, and, the deepest parts of the human spirit. We are diving into Yusuf Zaidan's incredible and, yeah, pretty controversial novel, Azazeel. So here's the hook. The novel doesn't just say, hey, this is fiction. Instead, it frames itself as a real translation of an actual archaeological find. I mean, can you imagine stumbling upon these ancient parchments near Aleppo, just sitting there for centuries? This is our way in, an old manuscript just waiting to tell its story. And this is exactly where things get interesting. You might think, okay, it's probably just old church records or scriptures. Nope, not even close. What's written on these pages is something way more personal and honestly, a lot more dangerous. It's time to meet the guy who actually wrote these scrolls, a 5th century Christian monk named Hypa. He's going to be our narrator, our guide, and our only window into his incredibly turbulent world. See, Hypa wasn't writing this for anyone else to read. He was writing to just get it all out, to unburden his soul. His confession is this totally raw, unfiltered story of his life, his travels, his loves, his sins, and most importantly, his massive doubts. He's completely torn between his vows to God and, well, the desires of his own heart and mind. And right from the very first line, things get weird. He's not talking to God or to a saint. He's speaking to this mysterious figure he calls Azazeel, almost like a lifelong friend or a shadow that's always been there, the very thing that defines his entire life. And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Is this a literal demon, the devil himself, or is it something else, something more complicated? Okay, so let's really dig into this because figuring out Azazeel is the key to unlocking this entire story.
This is where the novel gets so brilliant. Forget everything you think you know about the devil. Horns, pitchfork, the whole deal. Azazeel isn't some creature from the outside. He's the voice inside Hypa's head. You know, that little voice that whispers the forbidden questions, the one that tempts him with earthly love, and the one that dares to challenge what the church says is absolute truth. He's that part of us that just won't take things at face value.
What's really fascinating is that even Hyper can't pin him down. He's constantly asking himself, is this just me, a part of my own brain I don't get? Or is it some cosmic force that's messing with my life? It's that ambiguity that makes the relationship so powerful. Azazeel is his biggest tormentor, but he's also his greatest inspiration. So, as if this massive internal war wasn't enough, the world outside the monastery walls is, and I mean this literally, in absolute chaos. The pressure on this poor monk is just building and building. Let's set the scene. We're in the 5th century now, and it's a time of just violent change. The line between what you believe and who has power isn't just blurry, it doesn't exist. They're the exact same thing. Just to give you a feel for the world Hypa is living in, take a look at this. The Roman Empire is now officially Christian, right? But that didn't bring peace. Oh no, it just created new reasons to fight. In cities like Alexandria, arguments about theology weren't just arguments, they turned into deadly street riots. It all leads to horrific events like the murder of the brilliant philosopher Hypatia, and then massive splits in the church itself. It was a terrifying time to have an opinion. And the engine driving all this conflict is this huge theological war. You've got Cyril of Alexandria and his followers, who are so zealous they're willing to kill for their beliefs. And on the other side, you've got people like Nestorius, who are asking tough questions and getting branded as heretics for it. And where's our guy Hypatia? Stuck right in the middle of this incredibly dangerous fight. And trust me, this book does not pull any punches when it comes to the brutality. Hypatia is actually there. He witnesses the horrifying murder of Hypatia. And remember, this was a real historical event. For him, it's this terrifying up-close look at what happens when faith becomes a weapon, when certainty is valued more than human life. So you start to see Hypa's journey isn't really about picking the right side anymore. It becomes about something so much more fundamental, just fighting for the right to not know all the answers, the right to have doubts in a world that is screaming for everyone to just fall in line and believe the same thing. And that right there gets us to the absolute core of Azazeel. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. It's not about finding faith, it's about navigating doubt. You'll notice Hypa is always on the move, always running. He escapes the violence in Alexandria, goes to Jerusalem searching for knowledge, and ends up in Syria looking for some peace. But this physical journey, it's basically a map of what's going on in his head. He's not just looking for a safe place to live, he's looking for a safe place to think. In the end, Azazeel doesn't give you any easy answers. It's not supposed to. Instead, it leaves you with these huge questions. It makes you think, hey, maybe doubt isn't the enemy of faith. Maybe it's a necessary part of it. It makes you ask, who really gets to decide what's holy and what's heresy? And you start to wonder, how much of history was written by people seeking truth, and how much was written by people seeking power? These aren't just ancient problems. We are still wrestling with this exact same stuff today.
And that's really the final thought I want to leave you with. The genius of this novel is that it takes this concept of the devil and just turns it completely inward. It forces you to look in the mirror and ask, is the greatest battle really against some evil force out there? Or is it the struggle against that voice that we all have, the one inside us that dares to question, to desire, and to doubt?